My next guest, Joe Trotter, is an energy policy expert at the American Legislative Exchange Council. In a recent article, Joe wrote, gasoline prices where political fantasy and reality collide. No kidding. He says America's energy needs are in full display at the pump nationwide. Let's welcome for the first time Joe Trotter to the program. Joe, here's what's interesting. A second ago, I was talking to my friend James O'Keefe over at Project Veritas before I came on the show. And we're talking about different undercover reports he's done. And I remember one from a CNN guy over a year ago saying, you watch, 2022 will be the massive push for climate change and the Green New Deal, that the Biden regime will do whatever they can to force the Green New Deal down our throats, whether we like it or not. They will cut off any fossil fuel and we will be going green, whether we like it or not. Well, it's only March 15th. We got a war going on in Ukraine, and it seems like all we can talk about is climate change right now.
Well, look, energy security is national security here, and securing our domestic resources it's good for America, and it's good for the world. It's great for our allies. Without the ability to produce our own energy, we're at the mercy of foreign actors, and that's just not good for Americans. It impacts our day-to-day lives. The price at the pump dictates what we can and can't do as Americans on American soil. And handicapping domestic energy production it hurts Americans.
This all seems like a setup to me. I mean, we go back to one of the last debates between Trump and Biden with that Fox clown moderating it. And Trump called him straight out and said, you do all this, you're going to be at the beck and call and mercy of Russia and other adversaries. And Joe doubled down during that debate and said, when I get in, we're going to get rid of fossil fuels. We're going to shut it down. We're going to go green. And by golly, 14 months into it, that's what he is doing. I mean, he shut down only the Keystone, but there was a second one people aren't talking about. So there was 2 pipelines that got shut down. He even said, I'm going to stop all offshore and onshore drilling. There'll be no drilling in federal property. These were things Trump all put into effect. We were 100% energy independent, net zero. We're going to start shipping oil overseas. We're going to start selling it and making money for the first time in, 60, 70 years in this country. Joe talked about it on the campaign trail, and since day one reversed all that policy. And then Joe, and this is where I want you to answer, has the audacity this week to get angry up to here, as he did in that press conference the other day, and say it's all Putin's fault. His policy had nothing to do with the pain at the pump. Can you explain why that is a bold-faced lie?
Well, so much of what happened early in the administration had to do with not just the pain we're feeling right now, but causing pain down the road as well. Pulling the leasing permits, slowing things down, making sure that we're not drilling on federal lands. It really just, like I said, kneecaps our domestic energy production at its most fundamental level. But then on top of it, to your point, when it comes to green energy, so much of that technology is reliant on things like rare earth minerals, the supply of which is largely controlled by China.
Thank you.
And by putting all our eggs in that basket, we're in the same boat as having to deal with a potential adversary dictating our day-to-day lives.
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out, because I said at the beginning that you heard me, who's going to benefit, who's getting rich off this? China, our number one adversary, but we're all focused as a nation and world on Russia and Ukraine right now. That's why I keep saying, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, it really is odd timing. The convoy starts out in our country. The next day, Russia goes to war. Russia has the oil provided to the EU. They can't shut it totally down, or Germans would start freezing their butts off right now in the middle of winter. And Joe's over there barely slapping sanctions on Putin and them at the beginning to even stop this from happening. Didn't happen under Trump. And yet now we're going to go green. You got Pete Buttigieg, the transportation guy, and Kamala Harris and Joe going, just go buy an electric car. It's no biggie. Go green. We don't have the infrastructure to go green. And I'm not saying, Joe, that down the road for my child, my grandchildren, we don't look at using alternative energy sources like wind, solar, and batteries, but you do it in conjunction with clean fossil fuels. You don't ever give up oil and natural gas, do you? We can't. That's the way I look at it.
And right now, it's a tool of foreign policy. And it's not just all the way at the federal level. On the state level, we're seeing issues with pipelines that would make it easy for us to export liquid natural gas. And that's what the Germans need right now. And instead, they're having to rely on European sources, which means Russia.
Right.
So Russia's benefiting from all of this.
I know.
And our allies are being left in the lurch.
And Americans are suffering, paying, like we are here in Southern California, $6 a gallon where I live. It's insane. Joe Trotter, energy expert over at American Legislative Exchange Council. Thank you, sir, for coming on the program and keeping it real. Take care.